So, welcome to the 411 on health insurance. We're here with our first guest. So, I want to give a shout out to a very special guest. To me, she's near and dear to my heart in a couple different ways. So, I'm really excited to do this one. Andie is how I refer to her, but I think she has a professional name that she wants to give out to you. So Andie, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
My name is Andie Logan, and I am a limited licensed professional counselor out of Michigan with an art therapy credential on the way. I do refer to myself as Andie, but sometimes Miss Logan with some of my adolescent clients. So, yeah.
So we can't tell them your full legal name?
I mean, yes, of course, but sometimes if
Her,
they're
fir-
really young.
her first name, I like calling her by her first name. I don't think she likes it, so I think that's why she goes by Andie. But when you have a name like Ghaleb, you just like to say people's names. So,
Oh, I mean, Andrea is just so formal. It's all on my licenses, but I prefer to be called Andie by friends, family, and even clients.
so let me ask you, Andie, why did you get started in this field?
It was a big path to end up in counseling fields. I was previously working more in the criminal justice realm and doing fraud investigations where I would meet up with people and take their statements about their insurance claims. And I found that I was way more interested in their life and their stories than the potential of fraud that they may have committed. And I found that I was in the wrong helping fields. I didn't want to help the insurance companies necessarily. I wanted to help the claimants. So I took that energy and was trying to figure out what to do next and followed a career path towards one that included art because I've always wanted to be an artist, just never go to the school for it. And somehow I managed to find art therapy, and coupled with counseling, it just turned out to be the best profession I could have found. That's how I got here.
So it's pretty fitting for the audience because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So so it's interesting that you had mentioned your previous employer being in the insurance field, and then the thing I took away from there is that you enjoy helping people and you'd rather help the other end rather than the insurance company. So,
Yeah, there's a need for that profession, the one where it's assessing risks and paying out on claims. That's necessary for keeping white collar crime to a minimum. And just insurance fraud in general, but it wasn't where my heart wasn't there.
sounds pretty boring coming from an insurance
Yes.
guy to another insurance person, if you ask me. But I remember when you were doing that job, didn't you like hang out in the car for like hours at a time? Like you were almost like a private investigator?
I was a private investigator doing
Okay.
surveillance, yes.
So quick backstory before we get into more detail. Sorry, I have to share this. Tell everyone what your side hustle is. Do you have a side hustle, Andie?
I've been side hustling with Ghaleb for the last 3 years. I offer social media marketing as my side gig, and the website that you see 411 on healthinsurance.com. We created that this year, and this podcast was really the launching for that website. And I've been working with Ghaleb all this time to boost up his audience for clients and also educating across the various industries for sales. And so all the images that you see with all the logos, those are my products, and the captions written from Ghaleb's perspective. That
She's a
is my
she's
handiwork.
a wordsmith. I give her the stuff I want on there, and she makes it sound so much better than me. But I've heard this from a lot of people in my industry. Who does your social media? Who does your network? Who does your marketing on social media? And I always say my friend, and it's always the story that follows. So the producer and director of the 411 on Health Insurance podcast was actually introduced to me from Andie. So this young lady is actually the reason that I met Brandy, who is, I joke and say, my better 2/3. But if not for Andie, there would be no Brandy. So it's a whole nother story that we won't get into right now. But I'm gonna bring it back. I just wanted to share your side hustle because I feel like you do a great job with that, and I really appreciate you, because if it were not for you, I wouldn't be as successful as I am today, because you helped me tremendously with the marketing of my business. So thank you very much for that. And
you are much too kind.
so getting back to the Mental Health Awareness Month in your field, now give us the exact, because here's the thing I always get confused with, maybe you can help us out, but what is the difference between a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and a therapist? If you can help me maybe understand that, maybe the rest of the audience can understand that as well.
Definitely. There's a lot of different professionals in the field, and I didn't know much of the difference when I applied for the program. And so I can give you the quick breakdown. Psychiatrist is your medical doctor, the professional who has gone through medical school and can prescribe. So they do the evaluations to be able to prescribe medication or refer people to therapy. And then we have the professionals that actually perform the therapy themselves. Generally, it's psychologists, counselors, and social workers. And those are the big broad categories. Psychologists do a lot of evaluation and assessment. They're often the ones that are diagnosing your developmental disorders, your intellectual disorders, and a lot of mood disorders. They're basically the big power behind diagnosis. Counselors also have their ability to diagnose, but it's been a tight field there where psychologists have pushed for more diagnosing power because of their degree differences, but the counselors actually have more skills to help the clients, so they must have diagnosing powers as well. Then you have your social workers, who are often integrated in community agencies, often with the emphasis on social justice and advocacy, who are also operating as therapists. So again, that was basically three different types of therapists: the social workers, the counselors, and then the psychologists. And then we have those prescribers of medication, who are the psychiatrists and your nurse practitioners as well. So there's a little bit of the differences.
That makes it even more confusing. You're taking it even deeper. So if somebody wanted to diagnose me and lock me up, that would be a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Help me out.
I mean, I could actually be any of those
Any
providers.
Of those. All right. So
we can petition people to go to inpatient units if they are a threat to themselves or somebody else. That's usually the only time when we would pursue inpatient stay.
And have you had to I know you're new to the field, but have you had to do that since you've been?
I have had to recommend sternly that someone goes to the hospital, but no, I have never done the full legal petition to have someone committed.
I can't imagine. That's got to be difficult for the family. That's got to be difficult for the individual as well. So we just want everyone to get better. I think the stigma out there is with mental health, right? I think it's a stigma that needs to change. And, I'll be honest, I talked to a therapist. At first, I thought it was a joke. I didn't think it was going to be something that I do, but actually it's helped me tremendously in my personal life and in my business. So it's been a great, the therapist doesn't even think I need therapy. I tell her, I'm not telling you the full truth. I'm like only giving you half truth. No, I'm teasing. So I'm also sarcastic, which I shouldn't be in this subject. So I apologize to the audience. So here, let's ask another question, unless you want to elaborate a little bit more on that last one. I didn't want to minimize it because it is a serious subject, and that's why I wanted to have you on as my first guest.
See, who is this guest?
Great idea. Well, now they can see you. The recording has started.
I will definitely expand on what you said about the mental health stigma. The The way that we conceptualize the stigma, we wouldn't second guess going to the hospital for a heart attack. But for some reason, mental health concerns are like a willpower thing for people. As far as addictions, as far as depressed symptoms, grief and loss, we don't treat mental health in the same as the medical model for our typical health concerns, and that is changing now. The pandemic has exposed the need for mental health awareness because of how vulnerable the population has been in the stress of the pandemic. So we're seeing a huge shift of that stigma as more people are actually seeking services as of this year. So it's pretty substantial, the change.
But what do you, excuse me, what do you think will help reduce the stigma in the public eye besides a pandemic? I mean, it's unfortunate that a pandemic had to bring it out, but do you think talking about it at an educational level in schools would help? Or because I know for me personally, I don't remember ever hearing about it, and I don't ever think growing up I heard about it. I've had a little bit of experience with it outside of me talking to a therapist, but I would have never done it if not for the little experience that I had. And I'm not going to share any more than that, but if you could expand a little bit more on how you think that would help in the future, because I think the younger generation is probably going to need it more so.
Yes, the younger generation has a lot of complex elements stacked up against them with technology, with social distancing right now, with virtual learning. I think if we could take a holistic approach and hit every level of life with mental health awareness and education, that would be essential. And it starts with making it safe to experience emotions inside the house, outside the house. Being able to honor how our moods present would literally start the dialogue and destigmatize this need for, mental health professionals to step in as interventions. It would actually be the most beneficial if it started in the house. So having parents educated on how to validate their children, whether they believe their problems are big or small, what we need to do is just start to validate everyone's experience equally.
What do you say? The term that pops up in my mind when I hear you saying this, and I'm not bringing this up to be contradictive, but the term that pops up in my mind is snowflake. So,
and that makes sense too, because it's come from a generation of individuals who weren't allowed to express certain things, weren't allowed to express anger. Obedience was, rated above else. Don't cry. You shouldn't cry over that. We've been told these narratives for decades not to express ourselves like it's some type of soft part of us. Well, it is an important part that needs to be cultivated so that we can develop emotionally mature individuals that know how to regulate their emotions and not just turn to punch in a wall or being abusive. So the snowflakes term is always speaking on the degree at which I think people repress emotions and their thoughts as well, which leads to avoidance, which leads to basically blowouts that you see when people are kind of losing their stuff over stress.
good answer. Good stuff. Andie has been, what's the word I'm looking for? Andie has been gracious enough to join us to do our first video podcast recording. I didn't record the beginning, but it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and she is a therapist, a psychologist who helps people. Did I get it right? Did I finally get it right? Almost. I got it wrong
That was
again.
what we were talking about before the recording started, the different designations of therapists out there. There's a lot of different types, and I'm a counselor working on full licensure in Michigan. So a lot of these degrees and designations often start with limited licensure. Limited licensure means you have to have a supervisor sign off on your hours, on your paperwork. So it's an intense type of field that requires thousands and thousands of hours of clinical work before you can reach your full licensure. So mental health professionals, they're in all different types of settings. My setting is outpatient work at a nonprofit. And that means I get to do one-on-one therapy with individuals of all ages. I also do couples counseling, and occasionally I get to do group work as well. So you almost had it. I am a counselor.
I set you up. I said that on purpose for you to give us that answer. So thank you for sharing. I sometimes got to dumb myself down a little bit for the audience. No, I'm teasing.
Yes, I do know that about
No,
you.
I for some reason think you're a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I know you're a counselor. So we would say counselor / therapist, or no, therapist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it
All
goes
right.
kind of interchangeably in the field.
So I think my producer has put us some great questions, and I would like to just ask, and I think you mentioned a little bit about helping, and that's kind of what drawn you to this field, but is there something that you would say is your favorite thing about your job besides helping people? Because I'm assuming you're going to say helping people.
Oh,
Or if
well,
maybe you want to expand on it a little bit, or maybe I'll just let
I
you answer the question and I'll shut up. Sorry.
I guess, like, if you've ever felt this before, Ghaleb, where you just know that this is what I was supposed to do. I've always been a listener, and through all my life, and to then have the education and skill set to step into an active listening role that is helpful, it just felt like everything fell into place when I found this degree, plus matched with the art therapy. And I can explain a little bit about art therapy as well, and during our time together. I love hearing people's stories. So that really became known to me when I was doing that work with the claimants and the insurance investigations. I wanted to know more about their background. And I'm in the perfect field to get that privilege and that honor to hear people's stories of triumphs and tribulations, and I absolutely thrive off of being able to hear people. So that's what I love the most.
Knowing you the past 6 years, I feel like you're right. That is a good calling for you. So, and
Thank you.
I could see the way you light up whenever you talk about it. You seem like you're very happy and content, or maybe you're happy and content for other reasons. I don't know. So, great answer. I love that. That's some good stuff. Hey, and then have you experienced any issues related to insurance in your practice? I'm going to try to tie it together with the health
Yes.
insurance, obviously. So,
I was expecting that. So, as a new clinician, it's kind of hard to navigate the insurance industry because you have to become paneled. And depending on paneled, meaning the ability to bill and receive reimbursement from insurance companies, and that is very tightly wound up with your license type. So counselors are pushing all over the country for more billing ability. Right now, LPCs, licensed professional counselors, often cannot bill Medicare clients. So we would have to bill under another supervisor's license, maybe like a licensed psychologist. They're able to bill for Medicare. So the differences of categories of types of therapists dictate what we're able to bill under. And we have community mental health types of organizations that can bill under the umbrella of the company. And then there's private practice that often take your self-pay clients where insurance is not involved. But often we send out our reimbursements, and 6 weeks later, our billing, and 6 weeks later we'll get our reimbursement for our fees paid.
does that mean the insurance companies pay you in 6 weeks?
Yeah, it's usually a 6 week
I
turnaround.
don't believe you. Insurance companies pay you in 6 weeks?
Sometimes, yeah.
Man, they don't like to pay anybody no, I'm teasing. I sell health insurance for a living, but guess what? These companies are not non-for-profit organizations. They're in the business to make money. They like to collect premiums and find reasons to deny claims. So I'm glad they pay you 6 weeks. I'm sure you probably would wish they did it in 2 weeks.
It would be cooler if they were quick about it, but that's why it's important for my clients to find the plan that fits for them. that, offers the benefits for behavioral health, mental health, counseling, and services. So I'm always talking about people. I'm always talking to people about their insurance plans to make sure that they actually have the right fit for it, so that they're not paying a huge out-of-pocket amount per session. So being able to help you in this capacity with your business, Ghaleb, has helped me as a counselor navigate insurance better with my clients. And I don't think you actually knew that, but it is. I just talked to a client today about signing up during this open enrollment period, and she was worried that our services were about to end because she just turned 26, and she's going to be losing her parents' coverage. And had I not been involved with you and all the information you've shared with me over the years, I wouldn't have been able to help her and give her some, affirmation. We'll be able to continue our time together because of insurance.
And on that note, I want to share that anybody out there who's struggling, who either needs to talk to somebody or currently talks to somebody, we have an amazing mental telehealth program that was just released basically nationwide. So please comment, or actually you can't comment, but rate, review, and subscribe. Send us an email to the podcast, which will have the email address. And trust me, my social media is the same on every social media platform. You can go to any podcast platform and type in 411 on health insurance.
If you want to, be private and send that message to the health insurance podcast email for information about mental health and assistance, please do, and it'll be directed towards me, and we can get you help that you require in any state.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, any state. I recently discovered that there are licenses in each state, just like health insurance agents. So you have to have a state license. So very interesting. Well, I'll tell you what, we've been speaking for some time, and I know we could probably just keep rambling. So if there was anything else that you would want to add to the audience to help, because I could tell this is a passion of yours and it drives you and it excites me to see.
I would love to share that no matter your income, position in society, your issues with mental health, lack thereof, there's a place for you to share your experiences with a mental health professional. The resources are out there, despite what the stigma says about counseling and therapy being so expensive. I can tell you that there are free services at your disposal just waiting for you. Be patient, because they've got huge caseloads right now, but we want to work with you no matter what's going on, and there's never a problem too big for a professional therapist. So please never think that you're alone in whatever you might be handling. Mental Health Awareness Month is a wonderful time to find assistance and get that type of support in your life.
Well said. I want to make a joke and say I'm never alone. I have all the different voices in my head, but I don't know if that joke would be appropriate right now with mental health awareness.
It's par for the course.
Okay. All right. So
I've heard it all.
The producer's looking at me like we're going to have to cut that, but I think we should leave that in. So.
I like that. That's part of my therapeutic style too, bringing a little levity, because when we can laugh, that signals safety to our bodies and our minds, and I think that's a wonderful thing. So humor does go a long way in mental health.
Even if it's bad humor or poor humor like mine?
Yeah, even in bad taste, it's okay.
All
feelings are valid. Okay, thank you for inviting me on to this podcast. This is an important work that you're doing here, and so I'm very appreciative to be a part of it, and everybody tune in for next week's episode.
Well, no, thank you for joining. It's perfect timing, and I'm looking forward to putting these videos as well as podcasts together, and I really appreciate you with all that you do, not just for me, but for the world.
My honor. Thank you.
All right. That was Andie Logan, counselor extraordinaire from Michigan, a Michigander. And we really appreciate her for joining the 411 on all things health insurance. So please rate, review, subscribe. Follow us, 411 on healthinsurance.com. Download the podcast from YouTube. Greatly appreciate it. And we will be back and talk soon. Have a great day.